Good morning everyone, today we're checking out a brand new video from Popcross Studios of turning more Dandy World Twisteds into SCPs. Let's hop in and see who gets the ink treatment today.
Good evening, everyone. Upon ample request to do
And a good morning to you, Professor Oakland.
so, we return today to entities that fall under the SCP-R subcategory. Specifically, entities collected from the raid of Site SCP-R900.
Kinda like the look of this guy. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. His body's like extended and it's got extra ribs showing. And just an all in all, very well designed.
Also known as
Compliments.
the formerly operating Garden View Education Center and Museum. Specifying further still, we look today at more of these entities that have gone through a type of transformation which we are still studying, referred to by these entities as becoming twisted. In amendment to something I said in my prior lecture on these subjects, well,
You know, I understand that they're called twisted because the form has been twisted, but I think it might be a little more interesting if there actually was a piece of them that had been, like, actually physically twisted. And, like, if the legs were on backwards.
Operatives studying these entities have made efforts to link every transformation to an overconsumption of ichor. The entities I
I
researched
swear it's to be called ichor, isn't it?
for today have
Maybe
proven
it's just
that there
personal
are many
choice.
other theories about what has caused each individual entity to transform. This is particularly clear with item number SCP-R908. Object class,
Shellhead.
Euclid. Special containment procedures. Due to psionic effects on the movement speed of other beings, operatives who enter R908's containment are to undergo a reflex and reaction time test, ensuring they are able to adequately protect themselves if the entity attacks. They are also to wear suitably protective body armor and a face mask to ensure none of the entity's ichor gets into their system. Description: R908 was once an entity resembling a 4-foot-tall humanoid cartoon character with a head in the shape of an ammonite shell. When first brought into Foundation custody, she went by the name Shelley. Like many of her fellow toons who entertained and educated children both at the Garden View Center and in the corresponding television program, she was a pleasant entity who required little effort to contain and was in fact permitted to move about Site-17 freely, where the entities are currently housed. R908 was prone to engaging all she came across in conversation, and would often find ways to direct the conversation towards dinosaurs, or inquire about dinosaur-like entities contained by the Foundation.
Quick, we need an autistic person stat! I'm sorry, I know, that is a terrible joke. Absolutely terrible. Oh, but come on, I guess I could have actually said, quick, we need a 5-year-old stat, but that sounds worse.
Because of her pleasant demeanor, she was given ample attention by the Foundation personnel, and, on occasion, some inclined operatives would even use their break to engage in sewing with R908, a favorite hobby of hers. Unfortunately, when the first of her allies began to change into their twisted state, the operatives charged with overseeing these entities became much more focused on the twisted entities and spent less and less of their time and attention on R908. It is speculated that
I guess technically the question would be, who would be the first after Dandy?
When R908 entered her own twisted form, it was partially due to her feeling neglected and ignored. Prior to changing, security footage from her housing shows her pacing and speaking in a frustrated, hushed manner about her twisted former allies taking all the time and attention of the Site-17 staff. Then, 64 days after these entities were brought into Foundation containment, R908 transformed. She grew an extra 3 feet in height and the lower half of her body became formed from ichor, the anomalous substance that these entities were made from. She sprouted an ichor-formed tail, and the aforementioned legs were digitigrade in shape, making her look
black ink, Fox. That is just regular ink. Ink is already black.
Lower body appear somewhat akin to a dinosaur. Some in the Foundation have speculated that this is because of her affinity for dinosaurs, though others see it as simply a coincidence. Still, we are keeping in mind the possibility that the interests and personalities of these entities have influence over the form they take when they become twisted. Since R908 changed form, like most others, she has been unable to change back. She is also much more aggressive and has a strange psionic effect on other operatives and entities. Everyone in her presence is unable to move at their usual speed, often slowed to around half of what they were able to prior.
Interesting
R908's
ability.
transform was a blow to morale for operatives studying and containing these entities. They are now ensuring that every non-twisted entity is feeling respected and is given the level of attention they desire to keep them content. Unfortunately, that has not permanently prevented others from changing.
Yeah, judging from the way you were describing Sally's emotional state, it does seem like the transformation is partly, well, because of the emotional state. I mean, prior to that, Nancy was all happy, but then when she started getting less attention, she started getting mad, angry, and, in a way, a little greedy. So it does appear that the emotional state, plus the excess ichor, or ichor, however you want to pronounce it, and is resulting in these twisted forms, these twisted states.
I will continue with more entities
Damn, that book ad is really early,
in a
but
moment,
okay.
but if you are enjoying this video, you may also want to purchase one of Popcross Studios' novels or coloring books for more tales and art, or some similar creatures for you to color yourself. Links to the Popcross Amazon and Blurb bookstores are linked in the description, but alternatively, you could simply subscribe to this channel to see more videos if you have not done so already. Possibly even future videos inspired by your own suggestions in the comment sections, which is how these DANDYS SCPs videos came about in the first place. Now, let us return to the lecture at hand.
Alright,
Next, we will discuss one of the...
Oh, it's some kind of pumpkin centaur. Oh, but apparently his name is Gordy.
Latest entities to become twisted. This one is particularly unfortunate, as it was an entity who also craved the attention of staff, and being provided with that kept it from transforming for quite a while. But, with so many of its allies having turned, it seems this entity may have subconsciously felt driven to follow suit. Item number SCP-R906. Object class, Euclid. Special containment procedures.
A six-legged centaurian form. Kind of interesting.
Prior to any personnel entering R906's containment, an operative with a suitably soothing voice must use a designated microphone to speak into the entity's cell and act as though they are one of the entity's parents, encouraging it to remain calm and to lie down in the corner of the cell.
We need a mother.
Operatives who enter must still remain on high alert, as the entity is incredibly fast and dangerous. Description: R906 was originally a 3-foot 8-inch tall humanoid with features similar in appearance to those of a pumpkin. His head is a jack-o'-lantern, and his arms and legs were made from strands of vines. Of the entities taken from Site R900, this entity acted most like a child, and proclaimed himself to be one. He also regularly spoke of...
Technically speaking, all of these little ink guys are kids in a way. Not biologically, but at least, via age.
Missing his parents, but upon further inquiry through him and his allies, it seems he either never had parents, having been made from ichor like the other entities, or he is possibly referring to his creators, Delilah Keene and Arthur Walton, both of whom are now deceased. The entity was somewhat needy in nature, though he was also excitable and generally...
I mean, then again, also the mental state of these things could also be determined. And, they probably wanted this thing to be small, little, and cute forever, so they gave it the mental age of an 8-year-old? I don't know,
pleasant
6?
to interact with. Given the speculation that lack of attention led R908 to become twisted, operatives have ensured for years that R906 was given all the attention it craved. Unfortunately, on October 10th, 2025, this entity also transformed into a more violent state.
Damn it.
There was a lead-up to this and concern that the event was approaching. The entity had begun to express increased...
Wait, hold on, sorry. Why October 10th? Now, if it was like Halloween's Eve, the 30th or the 31st, that would probably make a little more sense, but why the 10th?
Frustration and anxiety that he was being forgotten by his friends, many of whom had taken on their alternate forms. Countermeasures were preemptively taken. The entity had long shown appreciation whenever an operative or one of its fellow entities gave it a gift, even if it were a worthless token or trinket. Because of this, operatives were once daily providing R906 with some such gift, and this did seem to appease it briefly. Sadly, it has now proven to be a fruitless endeavor. In his own twisted state, R906 has become a six-legged centaur version of his former self. His horse-like lower body is entirely formed of ichor. His torso and head are relatively similar to how they appeared prior to transformation, though he is often seen with ichor spilling from a slit in his head and from his eyes. Like most other entities who have undergone twisted transformation, R906's eyes have turned red, though he lacks the black circular pupils seen on most other twisted entities.
It does kind of seem like he's wearing a mask, though that is just meant to be via design.
As this entity was one of the latest to change form, some are still holding out hope that it can be turned back, potentially through more gifted trinkets or with enough soothing from a parental-sounding figure. Regardless of whether it will prove able to transform back, like R901 or the soon-to-be-discussed R902, research and experimentation are still underway in an effort to help all of these entities return to their original state.
You know, that ichor stuff really is pretty much just like ink. They should be able to wash it away with some water, right? Like
the next entity is one who has never had a firm grasp on the concept of personal space, but at least when he was in his non-twisted state, him getting too close to an operative was not putting their life in danger. Item number SCP-R921. Object Class, Euclid. Special Containment Procedure.
I don't know why, but this guy is immediately making me feel like Bendy from, not the Ink Machine, but from Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends. Like, I want to call this guy Bendy, but his name is actually Goob? Well, okay.
Operatives may only enter R921's cell in full body armor to protect themselves from its claws and teeth. While the entity is commonly seen aimlessly wandering through its cell, bumping into walls as though its mind were entirely gone, operatives are to be made well aware that it can quickly become lucid and attack, reaching any corner of its cell from a distance with ease. Description: R921 looks relatively similar in both its common and twisted forms. Originally, it had more cartoon-like features, stood 4 foot 7 inches tall, had a predominantly furry body, and most notably had arms made from a sort of long, springy cable-like material. In its twisted form...
Would you mean a rubber hose?
Its fur became more similar in texture to that of a naturally born animal, and its fingers extended into claws. Its feet became coated in a layer of ichor, and its cable-like arms became made of this same black liquid substance.
Literally
in both its
a rubber
prior
hose.
and current states, R921 has been able to extend its arms great distances. Prior to undergoing transformation, it predominantly used this ability to hug other entities of its own kind or operatives working on site, wrapping them in its arms, then pulling itself closer to them for an embrace. This was occasionally unwanted by the recipients of the hugs, but generally speaking was considered a pleasant encounter and improved the mood of those embraced. Unfortunately, this extendable arm ability is used exclusively as a weapon now that it is in its twisted alter ego form.
And that's terrible.
When operatives enter its containment, it will often stretch its arms from wherever it stands towards them to grab them and pull them in closer. At that point, it will then attempt to claw them to pieces or strangle them. It will often appear quite distressed while doing so, with ichor spilling from its eyes like thick black tears.
Wait, like, it doesn't want to do harm, but something is making it do harm.
This entity underwent transformation only after its sister did. In a sense, we at the Foundation consider all of these entities to be siblings, as they were all created by the same two figures. But R921, referred to by other similar entities as Goob, mutually professed with R926, or Scraps, that the two were siblings, with Scraps allegedly being the older
That's the next
of them.
one? Nope.
R921 often expressed interest in impressing his older sister, so when she took on her own twisted form, it was speculated by some operatives that
Did we actually see Scraps in part 1? I can't remember.
R921 may transform soon after. Sadly, even with preemptive countermeasures taken, this did prove to be true, with R921 becoming twisted only 11 days after R926.
Interesting name. Goob. And next up.
The final entity.
Oh, it's some kind of clock-like guy. No, apparently his name is Dale?
Discussed today is, thus far, the only entity from this group other than R901 who has proven capable of changing back from its twisted form, though it is still unclear why or how he has this ability. Item number SCP-R902. Object Class: Keter. Special Containment Procedures. R902 is to be provided its daily intake of Ichor through a set of alternatingly opening doors. Under no circumstances may operatives enter this entity's cell, and only operatives of clearance level 3 and above with sufficient emotional intelligence to detect manipulation may converse with this entity over the
Oh, great. It's a gaslighter.
microphone system linked to its room. Description: R902 can switch back and forth between its common and twisted states. Commonly, it appears like a 6-foot-tall human with a head formed like a golden stopwatch, with a prehensile chain hanging from atop it. It is clad in a long suit jacket, a rainbow-colored tie, and bell-bottom pants. When it takes on its twisted
I actually really want to see that common form now.
While it does act as hostile as others of this type, it does appear to maintain more conscious sentience than the others, acting under its own free will instead of from animalistic compulsion. While this may make the entity seem less dangerous than the other Twisteds, in truth, as you may have guessed from the Keter classification, it is the one that we are least reliably able to contain. Upon its first arrival, this entity seemed to be eager to provide us with as much information about its own creation and creators as possible, and it spoke more eloquently than many of its compatriots. Unfortunately, it was soon sensed by those interviewing it that its intentions were to use the favor it was gaining to be allowed outside the Foundation walls to escape. It also provided contradictory information to what was said by other entities of its kind, leading us to believe we cannot trust much of what it has disclosed. It also expressed much more disinterest and occasionally even disdain for its fellow Garden View entities. It even made an offhand remark
like it sees itself as like highly superior or something. Also, the dude has vampire fangs.
About desiring to kill R927, a shrimp-headed entity we may discuss in a future lecture if a third round of this is amply requested. R902 is allegedly the only one of the Garden View entities that was permitted by its creators outside the confines of the Education Center and Museum.
Really now?
It was responsible for all transportation in and out of the center, including the system of trains that moved visitors around the site. Due to this entity's inherent predilection for keeping things running on time, the trains in the site were said to be run with efficiency that rivaled Japan's famously precise train system. Unfortunately, this entity's intelligence and attention to detail have made it quite skilled at manipulating others. That, paired with its ability to consciously take on an alternate form as a 24-foot-long Ichor snake version of itself with lethal claws, has meant that it has breached containment and nearly escaped Site-17 4 times since it was first contained. Thankfully, it is relatively slow in its twisted form, meaning that, on each escape attempt, Foundation personnel have had time to implement defenses and recapture the entity. It seems—
How do you actually recapture these things? I'm assuming probably with electrical weapons.
Getting a taste of the outside world while working in the Garden View Center has made it desperate to embrace a life of freedom permanently. This is understandable for any sentient being, but obviously the civilian populations of our world cannot be allowed to perceive this entity's anomalous nature.
Oh yeah, no, easily. We'd go crazy.
That the Foundation has dedicated much of its existence to preventing. Now, that is all for today, but as said in the previous lecture, please provide suggestions for other Garden View entities you'd like to hear discussed, or other SCP entities or subcategories in general. Thank you, and good night.
And there he is. Clark Vuk. Oh, wait, no, I'm sorry. I mean, Dale. So that name, it's just so left field.
If you enjoyed this and you haven't seen my first Dandy's World SCPs episode, I'd recommend giving that a watch. Or you might also like my recent Mega Pokemon SCPs episode, with a bunch of new Megas from the Pokemon ZA game.
Ooh, you know what? I want to see Mega Phalanx done in his
But
all
besides
style.
that, that's all for today, except of course for ending this video on some kind of positive or
inspiring
inspiring
note.
note. And the thought I want to leave people with today is a reminder that living your life with the goal of impressing other people will not bring you nearly as much happiness and satisfaction as living with the goal of impressing yourself. If you go after a specific job or whatever it is with the intention of impressing other people, you very likely will impress other people sometimes, but you'll find that it is a fleeting happiness.
You let
Whereas
yourself
the
down.
satisfaction and joy you get from living your life trying to impress yourself is a much more sustainable, long-lasting happiness and sense of purpose. And when you do start doing things that impress yourself, you'll often find that you end up impressing other people way more often anyway. And personally, a bunch of times I've found that what actually impresses other people isn't even what I thought would impress other people in the first place. So I hope that's an inspiring or helpful reminder. I love you all, and I'll see you all in the next episode on Friday.
Well, that is going to be the end of today's video, and I hope you all enjoyed this. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe for more. Link to the original will be in the description below, and I'll see all of you next time when we flick back on. Till then, this is Fox, signing out. Peace.